Hi, good night, everyone. This is Sunday, March the 5th. It's approximately 8:05 now, and I decided that I would come again to speak about this digital ID and the Barbados Identification Management Act that was passed unknowns to us, alright? Now, I'm going to elaborate a bit on it now because there was a discussion on VOB 92.9 today by David Ellis. And from my understanding, the government was asked to send a representative. And for some reason, they did not. Okay, so we can only assume that it was maybe that they didn't feel that they had any responsibility to us, or they were afraid of the challenge. But I'll leave it as that for the interim, alright? Now, I'm going to ask first by asking a couple questions first, alright? I'm going to ask you a couple questions. And I want you as the public to answer me this, right? Would you support any law that can restrict you from being able to vote? Would you be willing to support any law at all in this land that can restrict you from being able to vote? That's one. Two, would you be comfortable with a law that has the potential to prevent you from being able to access necessary goods and services? I want to ask you another question that's really, really important. How important is your national citizenship to you? How would you feel if your right to be a citizen depended on a commission that was set up rather than you being born in this country? I'm going to ask another one. Do you think it is right for a person to lose their ability to provide for themselves because they prefer to use older technology over newer technology they are not comfortable with? Do you feel that that is right? And I want to know, as a Barbadian, how would you feel if there was a law that was passed that had the power to remove you from the National Register? These are things that I want you to think about and contemplate. I mean, really consider, okay? Because people are saying, well, what is wrong with this digital ID? Why are people so afraid? What's wrong with it, right? Basically, what's happened is that the government has underhandedly, on the 24th of February 2021, passed this law. Now, the rules state that they should allow the public to know when there are bills such as this to be debated. They're supposed to publish it in the Government Gazette. And there's a time period. I would have heard Caswell Franklin speak about it. There's a time period to be set. Now, for some reason, a couple of senators had informed the Senate that they would not be present on the 24th of February 2021. And that is when they passed the bill. They brought forward the bill, debated the bill, and passed it all in one day. And that is not the norm. It was done stealthily. And from my understanding, it went on until all 1 in the morning. So you would understand. But I'm going to ask you to look at some other things too. Now, you remember when the Democratic Labour Party was in power. I'm not political, but I like to make comparisons, right? When the Democratic Labour Party was in power, they were contemplating legislation which would make people their fingerprints when they come into the airport. And I think the BLP also had some consideration relevant to this. Now, if you remember carefully, the AG, or President AG, was not for it. But if you look at Section 5.8.1 of this bill, it states that the Commission can collect fingerprints with consent from a citizen or resident. Now, I don't know what would necessitate them wanting to take fingerprints from a person, but they can. All right. No, the other thing is that you have an obligation to register. Now, from my meaning, my understanding or definition of the word obligation means an act or course of action to which a person is morally or legally bound, a duty or commitment, right? So it's not mandatory, but it's obligatory, all right? Now, I want to look at the fact that Jamaica would have, the opposition party would have fought against this legislation when it was being passed by the party in power in Jamaica. Julian Robinson would have been the protagonist in this part. And I've been speaking to him in Jamaica. And they went about it constitutionally. Now we are finding ourselves in a state of limbo because it looks as if we don't have a constitution. Because what they really relied upon was the fact that it was unconstitutional. Their methods were a bit harsher than ours because they wanted to be able to look at irises and take fingerprints and do DNA, etc. But what was important was that it was discriminatory to the citizens of the country. And that is what's happening here. Because a tourist doesn't have to apply for trading ID, but the goods and services which are being deprived of us, the citizens who do not have the same digital ID, they are allowed to. Because if you were saying that if without a digital ID you cannot get a license or permit, and a tourist doesn't have one, how can they then come and hire a car? Because they have to go through a process with their license from where they come from to be able to get permission to use a car here on these roads. No, this is a funny thing, right? Because this whole thing is very, very, very forceful in the way it came about. It's oppressive. Now, you know, right, that Section 10.2 of this same act allows the commission to deregister you. For whatever reason they deem fit, they can deregister you. They can make you a non-citizen. I knew they did it to Sidney Bernard Alley when they put him in exile. But I don't know that a person can be living here, born here, and not be deregistered from the register. I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of it being done before? They can revoke or suspend your ID card. And I know that I've never heard of that being done before. All right. Now, another thing we need to look at is the fact that on Section 11A of this same bill, the information the Commission considers to be necessary must be divulged. If they consider that there's certain information that they require to place on this digital ID, they can ask for it. And there are 25 pieces of ID of information that go on. It's much more than was on the old ID. Your father's name, your mother's name. There's so many different little things. Your aliases, all of this goes into the digital ID, you know. People are not looking at that. People are not looking at the fact that even though information is on, that it is a continuity. That information will constantly be added on. People are not looking at that. They're only looking at what they get in the outset, but they're not looking at then continually that information will be added to this ID. No, a person may be required to use this ID card for the purpose of accessing goods from government or the private sector. The Commission can ask you to surrender your whole ID so they can substitute it with the digital ID. All right, they can request that, or how should I put it? Ask compulsory for it to be given to them. All right. Your information also, and this is Section 22. Your information may be disclosed at their discretion. If they deem it fit that your information must be disclosed, they can disclose it whether you give them consent or not. I want you people to take your time and read this bill thoroughly. Okay? I want you to also look at the Representation of the People Act, Cap 1.2, and the Statistics Act, Cap 192, okay? Because it allows you to keep your old ID, you know. Your old ID can be kept here. Alright? And I know for a fact that a passport is international identification. A passport, we can take it from here and go to Timbuktu, and that passport states it's you. It has your photo and it must be accepted internationally. We can't take a Trinidad ID to Timbuktu. We can't take it in a part of Africa and use it as identification. Oh, you understand what I'm saying? A passport supersedes it. Please, people, just think, all right? I'm not telling you what to do, but anything that deprives you of the natural freedoms that you have, all right? Anything that is placed upon you imposingly, and I'm going to quote my wife here, because she would have said that the government is being run by someone as if they're an abusive husband. And that's the truth. The PM is running this government as if she's an abusive husband. You can't talk on the phone. You can't go outside after a certain time. You understand? I mean, they're imposing things upon you. It is oppressive. That's the truth, right? And we need to be able to have a say in our governance. It is one of our intrinsic rights. We are allowed to have a say and participate in governance. It is one of our fundamental and basic human rights. And we would have signed the treaty relative to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and we ratified it. You understand? And it's one of the rights we are entitled to. And we can petition to them if we see we cannot get domestic satisfaction relative to this bill here. People think. That's all I ask you to do. Have a good night.